Works around
I don't know,
here.
but the look on Chris's face makes the launch of this show perfect. You are now going to be the thumbnail. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cubist. My name is Bill Corey. I am the Cubist. And we're back. It is episode 95, talking about modern classics. And we are joined by a lot of very familiar faces, which I'm all right with. Brandon Kemp, the energy bringer of our show. Hello, how are you?
Bringing it.
Have you recovered yet from 5C?
Oh, no.
No?
I just need more sleep. Thank goodness Thanksgiving's coming.
I feel like I need more sleep could be like the mantra of about 3/4 of the gaming community this particular Monday, but we'll see how it goes. Patrick Hillier is also here. Hello, Patrick. Do you need more sleep?
No, I'm good.
You did good? Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. And fellow coordinator of 5C and frequent panelist on the show, Chris Ray, is here. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Can I just say that being around a whole bunch of people that know you really well and listening to them just call you Ray got weirdly confusing about halfway through the convention as the sleep started to fade away, and I realized I maybe didn't know who the hell they were talking about. There you go.
It was a good time. And unlike Brandon, I am well rested.
There you go. Because some of us slept in and we're smart today. Just saying. Anyway, hello, Joshua Acosta. It's good to see you here. You should, Joshua, give some serious side eye to our friend Brandon. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, before we get into our main topic of what modern classics are and how we determine whether something is, let's talk about games we have played lately. And I'm going to go left to right as I'm looking at the screen, which means, Mr. Ray, we're going to make you go first.
There's a little tiny game that comes in an Amigo-sized card box that took Essen by unexpected storm this year. Belrati is not the game that we need right now, but it's the game that we all deserve in this speed publishing era. It's a simple card game that works a little bit like Mysterium. It's an image association game. There are fake art. There's fake art in the pile. There's real art in the pile. If the fake art is deemed to be real art by the so-called art inspectors, then Belrati gets a point. When Belrati gets 6 points, the game ends. But the museum inspectors are also on the same team. It's a cooperative game with these owl-like painting characters, and they throw in the real art and try to help the inspectors out in their art inspection. And if they get the right art found for each art theme, then they get extra points. It ended Essen's Spiel at the top of the Fair Play list. It's gotten quite a bit of buzz down at BGG this weekend. It got a lot of buzz at 5C. The art is odd. The character on the front of this thing is odd. But this is a game that is a fascinating little game and packs a punch in a little tiny box. So I like that one.
First off, I would like to point out that you created an entire contest out of getting people to take pictures with the game. So, yeah, it got a lot of buzz, but you artificially inflated a little bit of that, my friend.
I think I may have artificially inflated some of the buzz at Essen too, since I did write about it on my first blog post there, and it had like nothing on BGG beforehand. But I'm telling you, by the end of Essen, it was like everywhere. So
that's cool. No, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm giving you a little bit of crap because I thought that the contest was funny.
Chris is a tastemaker. So.
No, not a tastemaker, but let me tell you, if I ever get the chance to promote a weird aardvark, hippo, rat hybrid, I'm going to take it. It's who I am.
So the good news is next time that comes around, you're going to be ready.
I'm ready.
That's very exciting. All right, before we hit live on the show, dear viewers, Chris made a joke that he was going to talk about the modern classic Belrati. But as you can tell, he is also genuinely in love with this game. And I didn't get a chance to play it, which makes me really sad because there was a lot going on all weekend.
My understanding is that Scott Alden loved it so much he bought the rest of the stock and sold it at BGG this weekend.
Really?
Yeah, I actually think that's true. So.
That's amazing and mildly terrifying.
Yes.
I like it.
Not only is he a rat, he's also a client or something to that effect.
Wow. Did you just make a Hair Clubs for Men joke about Scott Alden?
Yes, I did.
Oh, boy. This will end well for you. I believe in you. All right, Chris. On the Cubist scale, buy it, play it, forget it, or burn it.
Buy it. It's excellent.
But you can't buy it unless you
can't because it's gone.
BGG.
Yeah,
because Aldi bought all of them.
Apparently, Aldi has like 600 copies. There you go.
Yeah, this is ranked 7.4 on BGG right now.
Nice.
Well, there are some haters like Brandon Kemp.
It's rated what?
know. Moving on before Brandon has an aneurysm. Patrick, what did you want to talk about?
I was going to talk about Deckscape, the Test of Time. So Eric Buscemi got me started on these. He got one from, I think, Daniel Newman, then he sent it on to me. So these are one-time plays, non-destructive escape room type games. They come in a Belrati size deck of cards in a box, and they're all numbered, and they're just like one stack. It doesn't come with an app. You just basically get the top card, you flip it, and it tells you what to do. And sometimes the deck might get broken up into 3 or 4 sections, and you might be able to work on multiple piles at each different piles at a different time. It's basically an escape room or the various kinds of different type of exit, or what's the other ones? Unlocks. But they did, like I said, it doesn't have an app. It is timed. If you make mistakes, you put a little X on a score sheet that you keep. Anyway, they're pretty fun. They're clever. They have some clever aspects to them. And, as far as rankings go, I enjoy them. I don't have a problem with one-time games. So with that being said, I like them a little better than unlocks because I still don't like searching for hidden clues and unlocks. These don't seem to have this. These more have the cleverness of them, of the actual like they put a twist on the answer, or like, I don't know, without giving these things away, but you know what I mean?
Help me, because I think I had a brain part somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Are they resettable, or are they truly one shot?
No, they're completely resettable and sent them away. So I just finished one up, and I actually sent one that I did to Eric, and he had sent one to me. So I ordered some more when I was doing an order at Miniature Market, and got 2 or 3 more. They're really good for when I go on a trip. They're tiny. They go into a pocket. I'll send the next batch to you. They're, like I said, they're just they're like a slightly larger than a deck of cards, and I throw them in my suitcase, and I can do them in a hotel room by myself in about an hour. And I'm horrible at them, but I enjoy them. I'm horrible at them in that they sort of score you based on how much time you do and how many X's you get. But
gotcha.
They are fun.
Very cool. Very cool. All right,
so,
buy it, play it, forget it, or burn it.
Definitely buy it.
Buy it.
They're $15, $15. They're an hour and a half.
So almost the same price point as Unlock too.
Yeah, they're very similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good. Brandon Kemp, wearer of the most beautiful shirt on the show tonight.
Yes, sir. What? You want me to talk about something?
That is sort of how this works.
I was going to talk about many, many games because we played about, many games over the weekend.
We did play about many games.
But I've been told that I can talk about just one.
Oh, that was like a dad joke nested inside a dad joke. I think I'm mad at you about that. That was terrible. Right. Anyway.
So Chris, before we did 5C, was picking up games, and he said, there's this game that's going to be at the hit of the convention. My game group is going to just devour this one. And I laughed at him. I said, your game group isn't that easy to peg. You don't know what they'll like that much. And I was wrong. This game, I don't think, left the table. I think there was somebody playing it constantly. And the game is just one, in case you couldn't see the thing that I held up there. And what it is basically just a cooperative code names, right? With dry erase boards and cards that have words. And the object is you're trying to score you're trying to get as close to 13 points or 13 points as possible, right? But the trick of it is, I'm so exhausted. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Where I'm going with this. Each player you're gonna get a card, and the card's gonna have 5 words on it. And I don't know if you can see it because the glaring lights.
Yep.
And I can't see these 5 words, and I'm gonna say I want number 4. And I want you all to write down a word that is going to make me say whatever the word is that number 4 is.
Brandon, don't look at the chat. We'll actually play. Hold it up there. It's number 4. Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Oh.
You don't say it out loud.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
sorry.
what you all to do is you have to compare those words that you want me to, or that you're going to give me my clues with. And if any of you repeat them, I don't get to see them. They can only be one clue. So,
right. So think of sort of like categories. Like if multiple players come up with the same word, then they all cancel each other out.
Yeah.
Same kind of deal. So as an example, in the chat room, Tom and I said the same word. So now Tom and I would not be able to show our clues to Brandon. This is perfect. That's actually worked out great from a mechanical standpoint. So there are 3 clues left, and I'll read them to you. They are Willow, Windsor, and Neck. Oh, and Hog. Sorry. So Willow, W-I-L-L-O-W. Windsor. Huh?
I think I know what the word is.
Take a shot. What is it?
But Tyler, I'm confused by Willow. I think the word is tie.
And it is indeed tie. There you go. Exactly.
And that's kind of how the game goes. We got it right. This card would go to the victory pile. If we had got it wrong, this card plus another one would go to the bad pile, and you only have 13. So,
and you can pass and just put the card in the bad pile without. And Tyler, for the record, that happened a lot when we were playing it too.
Yeah.
If people sometimes will think that they're doing the wrong clue. So we talked about that a lot.
Gotcha.
During the show, during the game. Sorry. I just wanted to throw that in there. There we go. Look, we just live played a round of just one. Good job, us.
And apparently
that's your game-a-thon thing.
Yeah. So but this was probably the big hit of 5C. You know, people played it all the time. It's good. It needs more cards, but you can always just throw Codenames cards or moniker cards in there, and you could
or Belrati cards.
Or no, not Belrati.
Stop with the Belrati. Goodness Christ.
And then you could just keep playing. So there you go. Is it a buy it, play it, burn it, forget it? It's a buy it. $20 and dishwasher safe.
Totally. Yeah, I was wondering when you were going to say that. Andrew Smith in the chat said you played it at Gen Con, don't get the hype, it seems boring. I get that to an extent, but I will say this, as far as party games go, it feels like, you know how Codenames feels smarter than just a regular party game because there are ways to play fun with the words? This felt like that, but wasn't competitive and was a little easier. It felt like it felt to me like lighter cooperative Codenames. So if you don't like one, you're probably not going to like the other. That would be my guess. So,
yeah.
And yes, Tom, that is what 5C was. And it was bigger than 20, but close. There you go. Very good. All right. At said 5C, I'm the only one, I think, talking about a heavy game here. I learned, played, and taught Futuropia. This is the new heavy economic game from Friedman Freeze. It is a game all about building a condominium where your human beings would like to live lives of leisure. And so theoretically, you need to balance how much food and energy your generators produce. And when the game end is triggered, you cannot win unless your condominium is completely self-sustaining. And then once it is, you see how many of the humans that live there are able to live without having to work because you've successfully automated and made things more efficient. It is a victory point game, and the victory points are primarily scored by humans that don't have to work, but there's other points. You can buy prettier buildings or get points for having lots of stuff at the end of the game, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like I'm taking my life into my own hands by talking about this game right now because I know Pauline Cow, who is in the chat room and is one of my favorite people that watches the show, was involved in the development at least of the English rulebook. So I feel bad for saying this, but I also feel like I need to be honest because that's who I am. The rulebook was really rough. I really had a hard time learning the game out the book. Really hard time. I don't know if it's because my brain wasn't working the way that it wanted to be working after having driven all that distance. I don't know if it was just a stylistic thing and maybe I learned games differently than other folks, but I will say that the rulebook was tough, really tough. Having said that, I enjoyed the game. I don't think I love it. And I really like heavy games. I like economic games a lot. This purports to be both, and I think it does some really interesting stuff. But I don't know that I am in love with it. However, I did not play the advanced or full game because I was always teaching it because it was so new that we never had a table full of people that already knew what the hell they were doing, and I didn't feel comfortable introducing all the extra bells and whistles. Just getting the mechanics under our belts seemed like it was enough of a struggle. So I have not experienced the full full game experience. So if you want to call this a first impression, I'm down for that. I don't mind. I definitely want to play it again. I am not convinced I need to own it. So it is a play it for me right now, but I'm going to revisit this game once I get a chance to play it. I'm going to say in a couple months, once more people have learned it, so that way hopefully it isn't just a teaching game. I'm going to seek out a play with people that already know how to play. So, or people that are willing to devote a night to it so we can play it twice because it's long. I want to say each game that I taught was 4 players and each game took about 2.5 hours. So it felt a little longish, but other than that, it was good. I don't know that it was great. I don't know if it has staying power, but I want to play it again. So I'm going to give it a play it as a first impression.
It's not that heavy to me, or it doesn't seem like it.
It's pretty heavy.
I mean, at least the basic game was really fairly easy once you grok the rules to go. I don't think there's a whole lot to it.
So here's what I would say, Brandon. To me, it was sort of like when you play the colonists for the first time, and the rules on how to do things are easy. The reasons on why to do things are not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's sort of what I mean, right? Like colonists, I would not say is not a heavy game.
Yeah.
But it is very accessible, which is part of the reason I like it. This isn't accessible, sorry. But that's, I think, because I struggled in the teaching. So I'm going to take part of the blame for myself because I think I had a hard time with it. I do think that I can't take all the blame. I think the rule book is formatted a little weird and puts examples in strange places and doesn't explain everything well. But having said that, I liked it well enough that I still want to seek out more plays of it. I just don't think I'm going to be ordering it myself. It is super mathy, Paul, and I agree with that. But there are other mathy games that didn't kick my ass this way. So I don't think it's the math for me. I think it was something else. So I'm giving Futuropia a play it. And I am promising here on the show that somewhere in the next few months, I'm going to be re-reviewing this game after having played the full version.
So 3 quick thoughts on Futuropia, Bill.
Please.
First, and I haven't played it, actually. I've read the rulebook twice. The rulebook is a little bit messy towards the end. There is a very nice example towards the start of the rulebook.
Yes.
Frankly, if it weren't for that example, I probably couldn't have gotten through the rulebook. So kudos to them for putting sort of the massive gameplay example in there. Second of all, one of the people you played with did put it as his 5 on the 5C spreadsheet. You're only allowed to rate 1 game of 5.
Mm-hmm.
That was Brad Gins. He's a very experienced gamer, and typically is the sort of person who likes the middleweight ones. So he really enjoyed it. And then the third thing is my friends at the Opinionated Gamers have repeatedly said that they think the best version of the game is sort of the advanced version with the little extras in there. So those are just sort of 3 qualifiers to what you said. But I think the consensus among the people you played with was exactly what you said.
Okay, cool. Good. So that makes me feel both a little better. That means I didn't completely F up the teach because at least somebody really dug it. And B, that I think I'm on the right path where I need to try it again with all the full bells and whistles. So if it never hits for you, Chris Ray, and you feel like shipping it to Wisconsin, just throwing that out there. Otherwise, no, I'm kidding, mostly. Anyway.
Delta's done their best to destroy that game.
That's fair. It's a good point. It was. I got to say, by the way, I borrowed Chris's copy of the game, just so we're clear. The event we were at was all Chris's games and Brandon's games. So thank you, Chris and Brandon, by the way, for supplying all these wonderful games for us to play. I had borrowed it the night before the convention started so I could read the rules and get up to speed. And then in the morning when I went to pick up the game to bring it back down, I noticed the box was beat on and I'm like, oh shit, what did I do? And then I realized it wasn't me. So that was better. So, all right, let's get into the main topic. Look how fast we can do this when we really try. We're so good.
A question?
Yes, please.
As a two Friedman Freeze fan,
As am I.
Was it, and how does that impact the game?
So the reason that I wanted to play it is because I'm a Freeze fanboy. Yeah. When Brandon asked us to do our Mount Rushmore of gaming a while back, I'm pretty sure Friedman was one of my 4, was he not?
Yep.
All right, so there you go. I am a huge fan of his work. Now Brandon tried to call this Power Grid with
and after thinking, the buying is just Power Grid without any it's just coming out.
Sure. There is definitely an aspect of the power plant deck.
Yeah.
Everything is sorted.
Yep.
So I get that. And so he's not 100% wrong there, but that was that mechanic, not the game itself.
I think Chad said it. He's probably closer. It's like Factory Fun, maybe, or something along there.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels more like Factory Fun than it does anything else he's made, but it still doesn't feel like Factory Fun. It's definitely its own animal. It doesn't feel like 504. Does that help?
It's like green. It's like green Fallout.
Yeah. It kind of is. No, you're not wrong. This game could have been.
What is the game? The handheld game. The
Fallout Shelter. Yeah.
There it is. That's what it is.
This very much could have been themed like that and would have been made complete sense. Nobody would have argued with it.
Yep.
So I think it's fine. I think that it is the heaviest game I feel like he has designed since Factory Manager. I feel like this is definitely heavier than anything else I've played by him since then.
Factory Manager for free from Subcon.
That's always a ringing endorsement.
Yeah.
So there you go. So that's Futuropia from Friedman Freeze. It is a solid play it for now that I will be revisiting. So, all right. I was all excited that we got done with the what have we played lately in under 20 minutes, and then Patrick screwed it up. Good job, Patrick. Damn it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the main topic, which is modern classics. And Brandon in the pre-show correctly said that I am leaning on the idea that when we were talking about Azul this weekend, and Thomas, please don't leave yet. Tom in the chat said, if Brandon brings up Azul, I'm leaving. Don't leave.
Brandon didn't bring it up.
He didn't bring it up. I did. So I was asking because I wanted to play Azul again, and I did. Brandon was kind enough to give me a refresher on the rules, and we played it again this weekend because I want to understand why he likes it so much and why everybody seems to like it so much, and I didn't. And Brandon's answer, if I recall correctly, Brandon, speak for yourself. You're sitting right here.
You go ahead. I can't think right now.
Okay. Brandon's answer was that to him, it felt like an instant classic. It felt like it had the makings of a modern classic that we would still be playing. So, yeah, no, that was not the great game that never left the table. Okay, good. Never mind.
Well, it never did, technically. It sat there all day. No.
Yeah. So, and I figured out why I didn't love Azul, but that's a different topic for a different day. And I will come back to this if we have time later. But Brandon's assessment on why he thought that, I completely understand. And that got me thinking. The term modern classic gets thrown around a lot in our hobby. I feel like it is one of those terms that just gets used, but I don't think anybody has ever really tried to dive deeply into what the hell they're talking about when they call it that. So let's do that. Let's exactly break down what we think games, why we think games do or don't deserve to be called modern classics. And I'm going to start by poking at Patrick. Because in that same discussion, Patrick said that he believed it needed to be less than 5 years old. Is that correct?
Well, that was just for purpose of discussion.
Right. Okay.
To call it modern. A modern classic, because then there's classic classics. Would I don't know, El Grande? Yeah.
Okay, so I would call, and you're ready for this? I want everybody to write down on their calendars that at 9:24 p.m. on Monday, November 19th, Bill said this out loud. Okay. I would call El Grande a modern classic.
Modern?
Yes, and here's
30 years old.
Yeah, but here's the deal. Okay. In my mind, a modern classic or a classic is chess, Go.
Oh goodness.
Bridge.
Okay.
Poker, Pinochle. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to be that guy because I've been talking about nonstop for 5 days. Those are classic games to me. Monopoly would be a classic game. Not good, but it's a classic, right? So that to me is classic.
Okay.
I think that we are confusing the words classic and elegant. And that's, I think, the difference. And so now I'm going to go to Chris. Chris, start here with me.
I need to redo my shelf.
You do not need to redo your shelf, sir. Chris, to you, what defines a classic game? Modern or otherwise? Just let's start with the word classic.
So classic to me would exist before the hobby was sort of formed into its modern iteration. So I arbitrarily draw that date as 1995 because of
Settlers of Catan.
Yep. So
That's fair.
to me, so I wrote a series of articles earlier this year called 50 Modern Classics. And we put 50 games in there. And but I said 95 to 2015. I said it had to have had its chance in the marketplace. So I cut out brand new games. And I said that 95 was arbitrarily sort of a modern cutoff. You could probably draw that, at 1979 and be fine, or even before that with the 3-in-book series in the early 60s. But I said 95 to 2015. It has to be well regarded and has to be widely available. So you can't have a game that has 500 copies and call it a modern classic. I think it has to have some marketplace presence. So those were my criteria.
Okay. How about you, Patrick? Where do you land on the whole idea of classic?
Well, I took modern as being current and timely. So I had chose games that were 5 years or younger, but still something I felt I would be playing in 10, 15 years. That was my definition of modern classic. So that's why I was thinking of games that were newer, but that I felt instantly would be permanently in my collection.
Fair enough. Let's use that as a jumping point for a second, because there is another term that I have in the back of my head called a future classic. Future classics are games that I feel like are new and will be still relevant in that time period. Like what you're calling that, Patrick, I would have called a future classic. So like, for instance, when I think of future classics, Codenames is the first one that pops into my head. I think Codenames is going to be around for a long damn time, right? And I think it's going to have a lot of legs. It is widely available and it's real good. But I would not call it a modern classic because it hasn't been here long. I'm sorry, what?
I said it'll be around if only just because they remarket it 50,000 times.
Sure. Yeah. Harry Potter just came out.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anyway, my point is, I think that's a nomenclature thing, but there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's not semantics in the negative way. It's semantics in the let's all make sure we're using the same words, which is the whole point of this. Right. So, okay. Gloom Haven 7. Shut up, Chad. Anyway, Brandon, how about you? Since it's your fault that I had this whole topic idea in the first place.
What's that?
Think about all this. The modern classic thing. Like, what's a definition for you?
A modern classic kind of is probably a lot younger for me than most. I wouldn't even go back as far as Chris. I'd say probably 10 years. When you start seeing that big jump in this side of the pond of people getting into it more modern. Anything before that, I would say, is probably considered classic.
So Carcassone's a classic to you?
Yeah, to me it is. Yeah.
Wow,
and it's just the way I see it.
Interesting.
Ticket to Ride?
I don't even remember when it came out. So
04?
I don't know. What?
04.
04?
04? Then yeah, it's a classic. To me, I don't have a lot of experience before that. The only experience I have before that with these type of games is what I've played now. So
okay. Fair enough. In my mind, there are sort of 3 clumps that games we talk about fall into. There are classics, which are, like I said, chess, checkers, poker, go, backgammon, classics. Okay.
Often public domain.
Yeah. Those kinds of games are, to me, classic card games almost all of them fall into this category. Most casino games, even though they're not really games, they're more things of chance. They're still games in the sense that people sit around and do a thing, and there are winners and losers. What?
I think they're just old games.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Games.
I
never want to play most of those games. Why do we call them classics?
Why do we call them classics? Because they have stood the test of time in the world. Our hobby isn't that same world. And this is what I mean. I think that, to me, the term classic means that it has to have stood the test of time. And I think that right there, and be remembered. Sorry, stood the test of time and be remembered and not necessarily well regarded. And this is the one point where, Chris, you and I, our definitions are super close, except for in your definition, you said it has to be good or whatever the word was.
And I don't regarded.
Yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think Monopoly is a classic. I think it sucks. And I think a lot of people talk about how it sucks, right? Like it's almost a meme at this point about how we played a 12-hour game of Monopoly and then I had to kick my husband out and make my daughter sleep on the couch or whatever, But that's there. But it's a classic game. to me, I agree with Chris's demarcation of 1995. I think the Catan changed the landscape in a really important and fundamental way. And so for me, modern classics start there because it's when board gaming changed.
I'm sure it did, but most people you talk to now wouldn't be then. Wouldn't that's just a classic, before then.
I think you have a hard time drawing a distinction between games in 1996 and 2006 and 2016. But you don't have a hard time drawing a difference between games in 1986 and 1996. The games from 95 onward all have a lot of similar characteristics. Lack of player exclusion, shorter play times, more accessible rule books, more streamlined. And so I think that the 95 thing is significant from a game mechanics perspective, not just the historical significance of Catan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and see, this is where I think this is part of why I wanted to have this discussion, because I think you're very close to being right, but I want to nitpick it, and I'm trying not to. So I think you're close enough to right that I'll go with it. I'm Team Chris here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's almost like I've written like the length of a book about this.
Look, people write a lot of words about shit that is wrong all the time, Chris. I'm just saying that is, I don't know if you've looked at the internet lately, but there's a lot of stuff that is not 100% correct. So, all right. So, and then again, so that was the first one, is true classic games are old, right? Before Catan. The modern classics to me are the test of time games between 95 and in my mind, it's like 2010 is where I kind of stop, because like the last decade is sort of where Kickstarter started going crazy. You know what I mean? And we started seeing the production ramp of games go really through the roof in weird ways. That's in my mind.
So Dixit and Codenames, those are off your list.
For modern classics, yes, because they're too, and I think and this is where my third category, future classics, come in, are games that are newer than that I think will still be relevant in a long time. To me, Dixit doesn't even make that list because I don't think Dixit made it. I think it's fine, but I think there are other games that did it better. Codenames does.
Dixit's pretty prolific, and I think a lot of games have sprung from Dixit.
They have sprung from it, but that doesn't mean it itself is there. You'd have a better chance of arguing Mysterium to me than Dixit.
I thought of Mysterium, but I really think Dixit's more prolific than
maybe, and I might very well be wrong.
It has at least 1.5 million in sales.
Okay. Right, and that's fine. Then maybe it does qualify, and I'm just allowing my own biases to influence my conversation. I'm completely okay with admitting that.
Well, in your slight defense, Bill, I mean, Dixit has apparently been really, really popular in Europe, but it never did quite hit as popular in the United States as some of the other.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so maybe I'm just looking at this from a too U.S. centric point of view, and that's fine. I'm willing to accept that. Paul in the chat, and chat room, I'm going to scroll back up and I'm going to hit a lot of this stuff. So don't hate me if I miss things. I'm going to jump around a little bit. Okay. Paul in the chat brought up mass market classic. And I think that is also a valid distinction, but I feel like it's like a Venn diagram, right? Like it's going to cross over a few of these. You see what I mean? Like, because I think there are, I guess, because the topic that we started with was modern classic, we're sort of defined by time there, right? Like I have inadvertently painted us into a corner where we sort of have to talk about when games came out, which is maybe dumb, but that's where I titled the episode, and we're sort of stuck here. So I don't really know how to get away from that.
If I can demarcate a couple of other sort of logical time frames.
Lord, yes.
So the early 60s are a good candidate because that's when games started to have attributed designers.
Sid Saxon, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, Alex Randolph, those guys.
Mm-hmm.
79 was obviously a big impact with the Spiel des Jahres, and then a few other games at that time were going worldwide popularity. So we don't play it anymore, but Railroad Rivals, I think, is what it was called, or I call it Damp Frost. Okay. And then that went sort of wildly popular, and so did Rummikub. So you could draw sort of the late 70s, early 80s, sort of the rise of game awards.
Avalon Hill. Hang on, I'm just not to interject. Sorry, but Avalon Hill needs to play somewhere in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. And these are when we were crediting designers, and there's like a growth in the hobby game market, and we have our first full-time game designers. And then the other time, if I'm going to completely undermine what I just said about Catan is I actually think there's an argument to be made that in 09, 010, a new era started with Kickstarter and sort of a post-Dominion, we're going to see a million iterations on every single mechanic type of publishing. And that really did start in 09, 010.
Yeah. And what's funny is that Chad in the chat made a joke about 2 minutes ago about we need a BC before Catan and AD after Dominion game dating nomenclature. And I'm pretty sure he was trying to be funny, but I also think maybe he was right. And what's funny about that is that gap between BC and AD is almost exactly what I'm talking about modern classics. Like real close. The only difference is I would put Dominion in modern classics, even though I hate it. And so, because like to me, Dominion lives in that realm, right? It really does, because it's very close to the end of that realm, but to me it does.
Yeah, I always call them the big five: Catan, Carcassonne, Dominion, Pandemic, and Ticket to Ride, because those are the five of the modern era that have had just an enormous impact sales-wise. I would bet that of the modern games, those are the Magic's a little bit of a different beast. I mean, it's almost its own genre.
Yeah,
it is, but it also, and we could and probably should do an entire episode on the impact that Magic had on the board gaming hobby that wasn't Magic.
You could do an entire episode on the impact Magic had on Dominion.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. Although I don't want to.
I'm going to be sick that night.
Yeah, I don't like Dominion. I don't like Dominion enough to do that. Sorry, I'm trying to get my autofocus to play nice. There we go. Yeah, I don't like Dominion or Magic enough to do that conversation. But yeah, but it's close. So right, it doesn't necessarily have to be 95, Chad. Yeah. Like we're using kind of.
It's all arbitrary. Like 95 excludes Manhattan. And if you go 96, you exclude Catan, but capture El Grande. I mean, it's a weird. I mean, you draw these deadlines.
Kalis.
It's always going to be weird. Yeah.
Kalis is floating around in there somewhere, and it would be really hard to not argue Kalis as a classic, even if you don't like it. It was the introduction of an entire mechanic, just like Dominion was, right? Like Dominion created deck building, Kalis pretty much created worker placement. So it's really hard to not.
Something came before that, didn't it? Shit, Chris would know.
What, before Kalis?
Yeah,
worker placement before Kalis.
There are parts of it in what's that old game from the 80s that everybody Democker, right?
Yes,
I don't know.
Ish. I own Democker. I would never think of that as a worker placement game.
No, I thought it was one of the key games or something. Anyway, we move on.
Oh yeah, there was a Richard Breeze game that had worker placement.
Sure.
Yeah.
But my point is,
I know it's the what's still a granddaddy.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. All right. So a couple questions that came up here. Does it have to, Tom? Does it? So it has to have easy mass market accessibility? No.
I do think sales have to have an impact, right? Like you can't have a print run of 500.
Right. But but that's too far on the other end. It doesn't have to have mass market availability, but it also can't be a boutique printing. It has to live in that middle where enough people have played it and own it that it can be talked about and propagated.
Yeah, the one that's like really tough for me, if I'm sorry to hijack this, but the one that's extremely tough for me is Age of Steam. Like, I love Age of Steam. A lot of people in this hobby love Age of Steam. But the thing is, that game didn't sell very many copies. I think it's still probably under 10,000 copies. And so, I mean, as popular as it is, it's still pretty niche. Most of the copies are probably accounted for on BGG.
But Steam did. And Steam did much better than that because Mayfair took Age of Steam and simplified it and reprinted it.
Yeah, I mean, I would even bet Steam didn't sell that many, but I mean, I take your point.
I was still with Mayfair near that point, and it did pretty okay. Like, they definitely weren't sad. There was also the legal nonsense with frickin' Martin Wallace and all that.
Yeah, that right too.
I don't want to go there, but whatever. My point is, Age of Steam lived on through its offspring. Right. And I will agree that you're right. It isn't Dominion and it isn't Catan or any of those, but it definitely influenced the hobby pretty heavily. As a matter of fact, Steam Rollers, which I acquired at 5C and is right there. Thank you, Paul. It's your fault I have this game. You kept telling me how good it was. Steam Rollers is basically Steam Part 3 with dice.
Yep.
It really is. It's the same damn game.
Yeah.
As soon as I started reading the rule book, I'm like, holy crap, this is the most literally named game I have ever played. This is Steam rolling. That's it. So, all right. I'm going to back through the guys. By the way, rest of us host folks, if you want to flip through the chat and find something that you think we want to talk about, I really want to get lots of voices on this particular show.
Gloom Haven keeps coming up. I don't know if it's a joke or if it's a discussion point, but
I mean, is it
help us, hobby?
Look, let's talk about Gloom Haven. Gloom Haven might be a future classic. Remember I said that I think there's that third category of games that are too new to be true classics, but we will probably still be talking about them. Gloom Haven might be that. If for no other reason, then there are 94 scenarios just in the base box, and each scenario takes like 427 hours to actually get through. So you have like 8 years of gameplay in that box.
History is not kind to heavy games.
That's true, but through the ages.
Okay, I've played 2 of 504. I've played 2 of missions on Gloom Haven.
Right, but people are still playing that game and liking it, and it's still getting well reviewed. And you know what I mean? It's still.
Yeah, I mean, there are exceptions to what I just said, but I really do mean it. In general, heavy games do not stand the test of time particularly well.
Except for Through the Ages, which was going to be one of my modern classics.
Yep.
I think Through the Ages is an exception. I mean,
Advanced, isn't that on your list?
Advanced Civ, Democker. I mean, there are a few, but.
Brandon, what was that?
I said, isn't Princess of Florence on the Opinionated Gamers list?
It is. I just saw that there.
And yeah, nobody's going to call that a heavy game, Brandon.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
What? Wait a second. Stop. Nobody's going to call Princess of Florence a heavy game?
I'd hope not.
I would. I would say of all of the first wave of the Aaliyah line, that's the heaviest by a far cry. Like that's way heavier than most of the other games that were in that same series.
I mean, it's a 3.25 on BGG, which doesn't hold much water, but
it's a heavy
medium weight. Then
it's medium heavy. We're going to compromise here because it is definitely heavier than a medium weight game. But we could also do a whole nother show on what medium is versus heavy and all that crap. And I guess I don't want to go there. Not tonight. That's a great conversation, and I want to have that, especially with you, Chris Ray, after this weekend and finding out that I had been invited to a light games only convention, basically. But
yeah, the modern hobby is mostly light games, though.
I know. Well, they're wrong.
Part of why I always said Azul felt like a modern classic to me is, and Tom brought it up early. Tom Rose brought it up way early in our conversation, is the simplicity of the gameplay and how it feels like a classic game before we started this mishmash of everything into a box, which is kind of what I call modern gaming. It feels very simple, and it feels elegant, and it feels like the impetus of gameplay is on the player, not the game.
Well, it's also close to having a new mechanic, which we don't see that often.
Correct.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
If I took a transcript of everything you just said about Azul, but I took the word Azul out and I took the word classic out and I instead put abstract in there, do you think anybody could tell I was saying something different?
Possibly not.
The reason, and I'm making that point not to be a dick to you, and I'm not trying to, but to point out that I think that what you are actually describing is a well-designed abstract game, not a classic game. Because that's sort of what all abstract games do. They are sort of light on rules, right? But have deep gameplay where the skill of the player is way more important than understanding systems.
So classic games.
But not classic. I disagree that classic is the word to use here. And this is why I wanted no, and this is a good talking point.
It's kind of a classic design theory, though, right? I mean, now we just want to see what we can mix and match. And we don't really try to come up with anything new. We're just going to take this and this and this and see what happens.
Maybe. I think you're painting with slightly too broad of a brush, but I get your point.
And broadest of brush strokes. I know that.
To defend Brandon ever so slightly here.
Wow. Are you drunk? You all right?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Anyway.
2 reasons why Azul is probably a modern classic are, one, the art kind of makes it timeless. They're not going to really have to do a facelift on that art, whereas, a lot of games they're going to have to do a facelift in order to keep it fresh in 10 years. And then 2, it's close to having a new mechanic. It's drafting, but it's this tile drafting that we haven't seen in other games. Mm-hmm. And I think that the first game to do a mechanism tends to stand the test of time better than other ones. Also, I'll actually add a third point. Abstract games tend to stand the test of time much better than their themed compatriots.
I absolutely agree with all 3 of those points. Andrew Smith in the chat just said something that I understand, and I'm sorry if you feel like we are being pedantic. I don't mean it that way. I just think I think that the nomenclature itself is an interesting conversation because there are connotations that come with it. The last question you asked, Andrew, is abstract can't be classic because ... And that is, if that is the impression that I gave with what I just said, I apologize. I'm not saying that abstracts cannot be classics. I'm saying that abstract and classics aren't synonyms. Like, all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares, right? Like, what I'm saying is that I think that Brandon is trying to say this is a classic game because of that, and I am arguing that what he is actually saying is that it is an abstract game because of that. It is an elegant abstract game, and I'm glad that you enjoy it so much. I'm not trying to attack it. I just think it's interesting. Sorry. Okay. Anyway, I just wanted to address that because I didn't want to be misunderstood.
And Bill, and there are a lot of new abstracts to the market, but most of them, nobody's going to call them a classic. I think the Gift series is a big exception, but other than that, I can't think of any.
No, I agree. Go ahead.
Hive.
Yeah.
Isn't what's the one? Santorini. I mean, that's an abstract.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I mean, that's old.
I know.
We're sorry, it falls into our modern classic era, right?
I don't think it does.
I don't remember when it was originally designed.
I consider the new one completely different enough that it's different.
I also don't really consider it an abstract at that point.
Well, I know. Technically, it is, isn't it?
So
yeah, I don't know. And again, this is the thing. I am in no way, shape, or form seeking to put the official Cubist stamp of approval on. We will only use these words in these contexts here, and I hope that I'm not giving that impression. And nor am I trying to say that Brandon is necessarily wrong, like factually wrong. I disagree, but I disagree because to me, classic is more about the history and legacy that the game has left than the quality of the game. And go ahead.
I was going to tell you about a fun experiment that Brandon and I did on this front a few months ago.
Okay, please.
So when I asked the opinionated gamers to vote on their list of 50 modern classics, I went in and we had a spreadsheet. They all voted, and we came up with our list of 50. I don't agree with all 50, but it's an interesting list. Brandon did the same thing with Punchboard Media. The difference between the two sites is the opinionated gamers have been in this hobby for a median of probably 25 years. And I'm not making that number up. It literally is probably 25 years. It's like they might as well stand for OG on a different front. And then but Punchboard's much newer. And I'll tell you, our top 20 were remarkably similar. And I think that there are about 20 truly modern, universally acclaimed classics in this hobby. The Agricola's, the Power Grids, the Big Five, as I call them. But then past that, there's a lot of divergence, to say the least. They had Burgle Bros. We had Fresh Fish. I've never played either of those.
Fresh Fish is awful.
Yeah. I mean, we had some on our list that I'm like, nobody's playing Nietzsche's Lord of the Rings anymore. Like, that's not a thing.
I do.
Yes, we just played it. But
what did Ben call it? Cult Classics or whatever? That's me.
But I think that the experiment was interesting because if you overlapped the two lists, you probably had a really good top 20. Yep. But from 21 to 50, there was no similarity.
Well, and here's the deal. And also because apparently this is going to be the day that I need to desperately make sure I'm not being misunderstood. I in no way I think are any of us suggesting that because I wouldn't consider a game a classic. Do I think a game is bad? Conversely, there are a lot of games that I do consider classics that I despise. I made a joke 22 minutes ago that I wanted to go on record as saying I think El Grande is a classic. I hate that damn game. We have been joking about how much I hate that game for like 25 consecutive episodes, but I think it's a classic.
Everyone chat room drink.
I think Race for the Galaxy is probably a modern classic, but I despise it. I mean,
I don't enjoy it at all.
Exactly.
I think it's a classic. I love it.
Right. So let's do round the table here because I kind of want to do like, and I am going to go last so that way we cannot rename anything. So I want as quick as we can, starting with, so it'll go Chris, Patrick, Brandon, me. Chris, Patrick, Brandon, me.
Oh, I get the easy one then.
Yep. You're going to start. Give us a game that is a modern classic in your mind. You don't have to justify it if you don't want to. If you want to, try not to go long.
Can we all just set aside the Big Five for a second? Because I think we'll all...
Sure. So,
Okay.
So for the big five, Catan,
Pandemic.
Carcassonne, Pandemic,
Okay.
Ticket to Ride,
Ride.
Dominion.
Okay. So the expansion games, the games where there is one game and then 427 expansions and or spinoffs. That makes it easier in my brain. Go ahead. All right, fine.
Power Grid.
Excellent choice. I approve. Patrick.
I want to go, since we were just talking about abstracts, and I want to go with this one right here, Patchwork. That is an abstract. I think that's a classic. It's a modern classic.
Reddit's gonna love you.
Oh boy.
Eh.
Brandon.
I'll skew a little bit newer. I'll be that guy, and I'll say something like Arboretum.
Okay, that's fair.
I've been saying that since.
Is that much newer than
right
Patchwork?
there? I got 2 copies.
Yeah.
What?
Is that much newer than Patchwork?
Oh,
This is-
I don't know.
I feel like they're real close.
Probably are.
But I'm also not looking, so I have no idea.
Patchwork is 2014.
I would like to say right now that the fact that we are not talking about Puerto Rico in this conversation hurts my
Arboretum
brain.
2015.
Puerto Rico comes up there, Bill.
Puerto Rico is, but it's not. When is it? You know, I guess.
When
New
was it?
gamers are not as fond of Puerto Rico as the old.
2002.
That's
I
a
guess.
nice. Is that John? That was a very kind shout out, I think, and we'll leave it at that.
John, to be fair, I mean, a lot of new gamers don't really like it. And a
Yeah,
lot of
they
old
don't.
gamers don't
A lot of
really
people-
like teaching it to new gamers, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So of course it's not going to be all that well received by.
It is not. It is not a perfect game.
Nope.
But see, this is exactly my point. And this is 100% why I wanted to have this conversation, because I don't think a game has to be perfect to be a classic. I don't even think it has to be good. I think it just has to be in the zeitgeist, wherever that zeitgeist is, be it the whole world like Monopoly or Scrabble, which I would rather punch myself in the face than play Scrabble if I could at all avoid it.
I call it a classic. I just don't always have a good connotation of what a classic or what classics are.
And that's exactly my point. Any
Puerto
game,
Rico needs a facelift.
It does.
Yes.
less ugly, less angry man on the cover.
If we ever get to me.
There you go. So, all right, Brandon, you did say one. You said Arboretum.
I did. I said my next one.
Oh, go ahead.
Castles of Burgundy.
Ooh.
I like that choice. I like that a lot.
That was on my.
Patrick,
I'm sorry. I'm taking
I'm snaking back. Sorry, I'm doing switchback because it's fun for me. Patrick, thought
Alien Frontiers.
good call. I like that.
Never played it.
What?
Chris,
I've never played it.
Hanabi.
Hanabi, good choice. I would like to point to Amun-Re as what I think is a modern classic, because it's been around forever and it got a reprint. It's good enough to do that. The reprint was kind of sucky, but there you go. All right. So I wanted to do that list, not because I wanted to pass judgment and go, that was a terrible idea, but so that way we could get just sort of like this is where your head is at and what kinds of games you think are relevant here. So now I want to go back through the chat really fast. And yeah, so like Andrew said again near the end here, if by facelift you mean more interesting gameplay, that's exactly, you are 100% entitled to that opinion. A lot of people don't like that gameplay. I love it. And by the conversation we had earlier, that we were talking about how a game that introduces a new mechanic sort of automatically gets that definition. Puerto Rico gets that definition in spades. Role selection, that's where it started. That is the beginning of that. I mean, and you can't argue with that. Like, I mean, I guess you can, but I will definitely assume you are wrong.
Lost Cities was a good one.
Yeah.
Lost Cities is
Yeah.
I want to bring up Terraforming Mars, not because
Drake.
I want to sing it, but people, because people keep talking about it in the chat room, and I specifically left it off my list.
Why?
I mean, I've played it almost 50 times, but I'm not sure if it's a classic. I mean, I enjoy it. I just don't know.
I think
I
it
just
is.
want-
And that clip art has timeless appeal.
It never changes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Here's what I'm going to say.
I think it is. I'll go ahead.
I think that Terraforming Mars almost belongs in the same conversation as the Big Five at this point. If for no other, now, hang on, not through quality, but through quantity. There have been very few games that have been printed in recent memory that have done a better job of continuing to keep themselves at the forefront of the conversation than Terraforming Mars has. It has a fan base that is on the verge of rabid in how much they like that game. It produces expansions at such an alarming rate that there is always new content to spend money on to get it. And if you think about it, these are the same damn things we used to say about Ticket to Ride and Carcassonne up until the stupid catapult thing. I feel like this is what people do with these games, right? Does that not, am I way off base? Right.
I mean, it's sold a lot of copies. I mean, it's a great game, and it's still a big hit. I mean,
I just ordered the Colonists. I mean, I'm still enjoying it. That's not it, but I don't know if I'm going to be playing it in 10 years. I'm slowing down. I'm burning out on it.
You're going to be playing that while boarding your spaceship to Mars.
So, isn't it just the solo crowd kind of keeping it afloat, though?
No, nonsense. That game plays well at all player counts.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I enjoyed it. I won.
Ladies and gentlemen, if that was not my friend Brandon Kemp literally trying to troll the rest of this group, then I don't know who it was, because there's no way that was a sentence that you said out loud and actually meant. All right. Joshua Acosta, way back up in the chat, gave us a bunch of games that he said were modern classics. And he said this very early in the conversation, which is what I asked people to do so we could talk about it after we had the discussion. This was 100% on purpose. He listed the big five in there, not all of them, but real close. Everything else that he said in there, we have talked about during this show and said it probably is. The only one he didn't is Dead of Winter. That's the only game he put in his list that we haven't mentioned yet.
I considered it.
Right. And I think that it's a really good game, but I don't know if it counts as a classic because I think it's dead on the vine. As much as I like it,
they're coming out with the new wave.
Right. The next, but it's a new milieu, right? Like they're not doing more zombies. It's the next in the Crossroads series.
Yeah, something else. They're just talking about.
And I think in 3 years we'll see if that game is still well regarded. But that's my point. That's the only reason I would argue with that particular one. So let's see what other ones got listed as classics. Sorry, I'm scrolling. I thought
one about Brass. I mean, that just got reprinted.
Brass.
I've not played it, so I can't say. Maybe I have.
I think Brass is a really good choice. I would definitely call that a modern classic. I was supposed to teach that this weekend and didn't. I'm just throwing that out there. Brass is excellent. The new printing is you know what? Everybody else wanted a facelift for other games. I'm really glad Brass got one because the first edition of that game was maybe the ugliest game I've ever owned on purpose. Right. I mean, people have definitely left shittier games at my house, but not many. And I bought that one and it was bad.
I put this stuff out covering up. This is really my modern classic shelf right here.
Ooh, Alhambra is a really good choice. Nuclear War, I think, is a classic, but not a modern. Like to me,
well, it's from 1965. That's
right.
That's in that old category that Chris was talking about.
Hang on, are you calling Near and Far a modern classic, or is that just happened to be on that shelf because you missed it?
No, that was I think that was my game of the year of that year. I really liked it.
All right, I was just checking. Very good. All right. Catarenga, I don't know what that is. Monopoly, yeah, I can't argue with that. Squirrel Grande, thank you, Chad. I've never played Circus Flocati, so I can't speak to that. It was at 5C. I think he's just trolling people. What the hell do I know?
People seem to like that game now.
It's a decent little game.
Kanban. Okay, so now let's talk about Kanban.
That's modern.
It is. Well,
too modern.
Well, not for you. You said within 5 years at the beginning of this conversation.
I don't know. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, did I change your mind?
Nope.
All right. Well, then there you go. Agricola. Yeah, it's really hard to argue with that. That should for sure be in this conversation.
I mean, that's in the.
Chris doesn't like that, though. I think.
Oh, stop it!
If you're going to make the Big Ten,
the greatest game ever made.
I'm pretty sure that was number 10 on your list, right?
It is definitely not the greatest game ever made, but it is very good, and it's definitely a classic.
I'm just going to go feed my people real quick.
Onitama is an abstract, but isn't a classic. Azul is both potentially. I think Onitama could potentially. I don't think it's been around long enough. I mean, it's still getting a lot of play. I still see a lot of pictures of people playing it in the people that I pay attention to on board game media. Yeah, Scythe. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to gloss past Crisco.
Wow,
I was going to say Onitama is what you get if you mix chess and randomness.
Yeah, there's that. Well, but the Duke did the same thing, and people really liked that.
I haven't heard much about the Duke in a long time.
No, I haven't either. But my point is, I don't think it is for the record, I was not submitting the Duke as a potential add to this list. I'm saying that chess plus random equals the Duke. I haven't played Odadama enough to know if that also is, but there you go. San Juan, I don't think it's fair. I don't know, because San Juan came before Race, right? Like San Juan was first and the Race for the Galaxy was second. And I hated San Juan with a fiery passion. I'll still play Race. I just won't love it. But I'd rather
San Juan is, I wrote, I just covered this, I think, on the shuffle. San Juan is a smaller set. I don't know how to describe it. It has less actions, and it has less, it's a little more prescribed, I think, than Race.
The problem with San Juan is it was sort of immediately supplanted by Race.
Yeah.
I think the problem with San Juan is that it has 2 or 3 broken ass cards in it that if you get those cards, you just win the damn game. But that's just me.
Well, there's a second version out.
That's fine.
Fix some of that. But anyway, it's not a bad game. I'm not knocking it.
Yeah, for sure. The Resistance, that's a really good call. No, hang on. I don't like it either. But the Resistance was the game that made social deduction bite-sized. Yeah. It's the first game that got a social deduction game onto a half-an-hour play. It has been refined and made better since, but it did something that nothing else had done until that point. So I think that deserves a spot. Shadows over Camelot, same argument. It is the first game that really introduced the trader mechanic in any way, shape, or form. Even though I don't like it, I think it's a good choice. Ginkopolis. Brandon, is that a modern classic?
It's a classic to me, but I don't think others will think it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's somebody just mentioned Glory to Rome, and I want to lump those two together, and just that they're not very accessible.
Yep.
And that makes them hard to be called classics.
For as much as I complain about the mishmash and just throwing things in a box with all sorts of different mechanisms, and I complain about it, that's what Gink is, right?
Yeah, that is one of the
and I love it for that.
That is one of the least themey games that pretends to have a theme I think I've ever played. Yeah. Like it's really just mechanics in a box, but it is really good.
It makes no sense.
There's nothing about that game that makes a damn bit of sense, but it's fun. It is really fun. But I also wouldn't call it an abstract because there's too much.
Carson City a classic before I call Ginkopolis a classic.
That's fair. Tom Rose said Ra. Yeah, Ra and Modern Art and Medici. Ra and Modern Art, yes. Medici, maybe.
All right. Hot take.
Go.
I hate Modern Art.
Oh no! Please tell me you're talking about the genre of actual art and not the game.
Here we go. No, this is good. Patrick.
I don't like Knizia. I don't like Knizia. I don't care much for. I do like Ingenious. That I'll lump that in the.
That's a modern classic.
Yeah. But no, I'm not a huge fan of many of his games, and people go gaga over that game, and I just don't get it.
I don't love Modern Art either, but the reason I don't love it is because it is solvable, and some people, if they aren't good at that solve, will take for flippin' ever to do it, and it can make the game painful near the end.
And some people are just really bad at it.
I agree.
That would be me.
And that's fine. Now, having said that, I actually do like, especially somebody brought up Tigris and Euphrates earlier, by the way, and I am shamed that I didn't bring that up because that for sure belongs in this conversation. You know why that belongs in this conversation? No, it absolutely does, even if you hate it, because T&E is maybe the first game that ever got played so damn much online that people like reinvented the game outside of Knizia.
Right.
Because remember when BGG used to let you play that game on their own little sub dealio, and that was the only game that they had? Does everybody remember that? Or am I too old?
I think you're too old.
All right. Shut up. Anyway, my point is that belongs on that list for sure. It was that well beloved. So Glory to Rome isn't accessible. Yeah. Arkham Horror. Yeah, no. Dear Lord, no. Well, maybe. I don't know. Maybe, but only because I don't want to say yes. I don't know. I want to try 3rd edition Arkham Horror. The new one with like the modular board. That looks like that could be kind of rad. BSG, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I have a hard time with that one, but I get it.
People love it. People love it, man.
Yeah, I know they do. And I like it. I just think it's hard to get to the table, but that's all right.
But yeah, and then it spawned other things. It spawned It probably
Winter.
spawned Dead of Winter. It spawned the
it
dice
definitely-
version, and
It
you know, so
absolutely spawned Dead of Winter. There's no doubt about it.
right.
So, can I just say, by the way, that all of you that give me shit for talking about how much I hate El Grande every episode owe me an apology for not trying to call Eclipse a modern classic. I'm just throwing that out there. And I wanted to because I think it comes really close, but I don't think it hits.
All right.
Because
So
it's
Tom
too-
Rose asked for Ameritrash. Risk,
Axis and Allies
Axis and Allies. Any of those? Yeah.
almost isn't modern. It's almost too old.
So the Ameritrashy ones, I'd say Twilight Imperium,
There
Battlestar
you go.
Galactica is like my
Yeah.
prototypical Ameritrash.
That's pretty true.
Game of Thrones, second edition.
I think Descent qualifies as a modern classic, even though I'd rather never play it again because it made dungeon crawlers in a box really a thing again. It had sort of existed before that, but it was the first time that it did it full bore.
The apps have really helped those games.
What, Brandon?
Trail is probably a modern classic.
Yeah. Yep. Even though I don't think it's good. But yeah. Fortress America. Tom coming in strong at the end of the conversation there. Fortress America, you definitely need to play that before you play Axis and Allies. Like if you are ever sitting down seriously thinking to yourself, you know what I really want to do is push dudes around on a map and roll a crap ton of dice. Look past your copy of A&A and just say, nope, I've heard there's something better, and go play Fortress America first because it's way better. Just throwing that out there. So, all right. So we got pedantic. We talked a lot about nomenclature and goofy crap. That's sort of what we do on this show. I hope that you enjoyed it. So I want to get more feedback. So folks that are still sitting in the chat room, the Cubist podcast at gmail.com, or use the hashtag Cubist Modern Classic on Twitter. And I want you to give us 3 games that you think, after listening to our conversation, whether you think we're right or wrong, you don't have to justify them. You don't have to explain them. You are welcome to do so if you wish. You don't have to do any of that. I want 3 games that you think are modern classics. And I'm going to come back next week with a very brief sort of data set of what our viewership has thought of that. So 3 games that you think are modern classics. Real fast before we go. Tom Chittister, update on best Essen game played so far.
For me, it's Gingerbread House.
Okay.
I was just telling Thomas he probably doesn't want that update from this crowd.
Okay.
He's wanting to know if we like games like the Gugong and what are the other ones? We didn't even play Magnastorm this weekend.
If we could get through the damn rule books, then we'd be in much better shape.
Yeah. Blackout should have been played, but nobody could.
Is that an expansion to Sharknado or something? No.
I don't know. I'm hesitant to say anything. I mean, I've played a lot of them, and they've been good, and they've been bad.
I've never said this before. Gen Con 2018 had better games than Essen 2018.
I was going to say, look at our ratings list for 5C, and
Wow.
that shows right there.
Wow. Can I ask, was just one an Essen game?
It was.
Well,
Was-
it
was
was an Essen
Gizmos?
game, but it had a wide release everywhere at the same time.
Was Gizmos? Or
No,
is
that was Gen
Gen
Con.
Con.
Okay, thank you. I'm behind on this stuff. All right. You got it did not get played at 5C, but I'm gonna take Australia. Because even though it didn't get played at 5C, it was released at Essen, was it not? Chris, help me out. You were the one that was there.
Which one?
Australia, the new Martin Wallace.
Yeah, I think it's Kickstarter, so wasn't it?
Yeah, I got it through Kickstarter. That's what I'm saying. Does it count as an Essen release?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's
Okay,
like the BTV.
If it does, then that's the one I'm going to pick. But I will tell you that just one I think was really damn good and comes a close second, even though they're nothing alike. Thank you, Paul, for recommending that I pick up Australia. You were 100% right. That game is really good.
Quite honestly, the Boldest may be my favorite, but the Gingerbread House is good.
Gotcha.
Give me a hot take on the Gingerbread House. What's that about?
Phil
both of
Walker
you.
Harding does his best.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
stacking.
I like him, but I mean, I don't know anything about the game.
Oh, it's microtransactions meets Phil Walker Harding. You have a little grid, and you're stacking things, and then you earn the pieces that you place on top of in little gingerbread cookies, and you're trying to trade them in for cards. And it's got some cute theme and some great artwork, and it takes less than half an hour, and it's easy to teach. And the rulebook is
like the perfect Christmas game too.
It is. That's wow. Yeah, that I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, that is.
Yeah, I really like Barron Park. And I like his ideas already. And this feels like him taking things he learned from Barron Park and making another game that might be even better. I'm really geeked about this one. Yeah, and Keyforge is an interesting call for the new one, or for a new one too, because I watched videos on it. I didn't actually get a chance to play it, even though there was one fella at 5C that was on the verge of insistent that by God he wanted to sit me down at a table and teach me Keyforge. And I just kept getting pulled in 8 different directions.
I played it finally with Ray.
What was the name of your deck?
I got a picture of it somewhere, but
was it offensive?
I think it's going to be an interesting game from a gaming social aspect. I think people are going to love those names and they're going to love those decks, but I think this is going to be a flop competitively. I don't know that I could see what I could do with my cards, right? And I could see where I wanted to move things and how I wanted to chain things and how I wanted to do it. But I can't tune that at all. It's all self-sufficient, so I'm just relying on what I have. So it becomes a card churning game, which sorry, it's after 10, right?
Ah! It doesn't make it after dark. That's fine.
I hate games that just make me want to churn cards and dig. I hate that.
Okay.
And that's what this does.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Does it feel like a design flaw or a taste thing?
No, I think it's a taste thing, and I think people will like it, but I don't think this is going to be this is going to have to be their competitive card game, right? With Netrunner gone and L5R being kind of a flop, except for people who play L5R.
Here's what I anticipate. Right now, I feel like we have seen the advent of drafts and sealed deck and sealed stuff as where Magic went. And I think Keyforge is a good attempt to capitalize on that and create a system where you have to play with what you get dealt. And I think that's interesting.
Yeah, and everybody's sitting there saying this is going to reward the good players who learn their decks. Well, maybe, because you still got to draw the right stuff at the right time and have it access to it. So you're just going to be churning your deck. I think it's going to be fun to do like blind stuff. I bought 12 decks. I'm planning on doing a blind tournament for folks. If they want to keep the deck, they can keep the deck after it's done. We'll have some fun with it. But other than that, I don't know. I was disappointed playing it.
Okay. Sorry. I'm yelling at Ben right now.
Why?
Because I'm confused.
I said the F word.
No. He's yelling at me about something else.
Oh, okay.
He said that he thinks that Australia is a forget it now. And I was pretty sure when we played it, we both really enjoyed it. So now I'm confused. But anyway, that's a different conversation for a different day. So, all right. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for joining us. I would like to point out that Punchboard Media wait, hang on. I did that wrong. The Cubist. See, I'm so out of practice because I'm an idiot. The Cubist podcast is a proud member of Punchboard Media, where we all bring something to the table. I'm not even waiting for you people to mumble anymore. I'm just going to say the damn thing. Go to punchboardmedia.com for lots of awesome content. Chris Ray, opinionatedgamers.com is where you live, yeah?
Yep, that's me, but I'm on hiatus for a few months.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you're retired-ish.
Yeah.
You're like Michael Jordan level of retired. Good job. Patrick, anything fun to talk about?
No.
Okay. How about you, Brandon? Are you awake?
I'm on Twitter at Over the Hill here.
There you go.
Nope. I don't have much. No, I really don't.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks for making the end of this conversation end with not a bang but a whimper.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for bringing that up. I was going to say it and then I totally forgot. I hope everybody legitimately has a fantastic week. I know I say that all the time, but especially this week, I feel like I came out of 5C feeling more refreshed and hopeful than I have in a while. And it had nothing to do with the convention. It had to do with Bill getting out of his own damn head for a week and taking some time off. And so I am goddamn patty positive today. I hope you all have an amazing week with friends and family. Happy Thanksgiving. Try not to eat too much, and we will see you all again in 7 days. Have a good one, and we'll catch you later. Bye.